A single F-35 Lightning II contains more silver than most people will see in their entire lifetime, 47 ounces. It is embedded in the radar arrays, the flight control systems, and the weapons targeting networks. At today's price of $76 per ounce, that is over $3,000 worth of silver per jet. But here is what the Pentagon does not want you to calculate. I have been tracking a single line item in the defense budget that should terrify every taxpayer and thrill every silver investor. The United States military has quietly become the world's largest institutional consumer of silver, and they are about to trigger a supply crisis that will make the Hunt brothers look like amateur hour. This isn't about geopolitics. This isn't about the current conflicts in the Middle East or Eastern Europe. This is about mathematics, metallurgy, and the brutal reality that modern warfare is physically impossible without silver. And the Pentagon just realized they have a massive problem. Let me show you the numbers they have been hiding. Deep in the 2024 Pentagon budget allocation, buried on page 847, there is a request for 127.3 million ounces of silver for the Strategic Materials Reserve. That is 15% of global annual production going directly into weapon systems in just 2 years. But here is what made my blood run cold. The report specifically mentions critical shortfall projections. Translation: the Pentagon is running out of silver and they know it. Major General Patricia Webb admitted in a leaked briefing that advanced weapon systems cannot function without reliable silver supplies through 2030. So let me break this down in terms you can understand. Every Patriot missile needs 32 ounces. Every naval destroyer carries 4,800 ounces. Every new B-21 Raider stealth bomber sucks up 94 ounces. The Pentagon wants 97% of an entire year's global production over the next decade. That leaves zero room for Tesla, zero room for Apple, and zero room for you. And here is the kicker. The Pentagon has authorization to pay any price necessary to secure strategic materials. While you're debating if silver is expensive at $76, the U.S. military has a blank check to outbid you at $100, $150, or even $200. But that's not even the scary part. The scary part is the deadline they just set for February 28th. What I discovered next changed everything I thought I knew about military procurement and precious metals manipulation. The Pentagon's silver strategy isn't new. It is the fourth time in American history that the military-industrial complex has weaponized a critical material market, and every time, the same pattern played out. Let me show you the blueprint they have used before. During World War II, the U.S. government desperately needed copper for ammunition and the Manhattan Project. But supply was tight, so they did something unprecedented. They borrowed 113.5 million ounces of silver from the Treasury and used it to create copper-clad silver wire. The official story was emergency substitution. The real story was price manipulation. By flooding the market with alternatives, they kept prices artificially low. But when the war ended and the government had to return that silver, prices exploded. Silver jumped 82% in just 3 years. Fast forward to the Cold War. The Pentagon needed titanium for jet engines, but the Soviet Union controlled 65% of the global supply. So the Defense Department created shell companies and used the futures markets to manipulate prices downward while they secretly stockpiled. It was a masterclass in deception. They kept the price low while they bought everything they could get their hands on. Then came the 1970s rare earth crisis. The Pentagon realized that every guided missile needed rare earth elements and China held the keys. So they initiated Operation Clear Skies, a classified program to corner the market through domestic subsidies. They kept prices suppressed for a decade while they filled their warehouses. Then, in 1989, when the buying stopped and reality hit, prices went parabolic. Curium increased 340% in 18 months. Do you see the pattern? Government accumulation is always disguised as market stability. They suppress the price during the acquisition phase, and then we see a violent revaluation once physical reality overcomes paper promises. Now, we are watching the fourth iteration. Silver is the new titanium, but this time the scale is exponentially larger, and the timeline is compressed. In previous cycles, the Pentagon could find substitutes. You could build aircraft with aluminum instead of titanium if you had to. But modern warfare has changed the laws of physics. Today's technology requires silver not just for conductivity, but for electromagnetic properties that no substitute on Earth can match. And that is where the trap snaps shut. Here is where the historical pattern breaks down and becomes far more dangerous. In previous cycles, the Pentagon could find substitutes when prices rose. You could make ammunition with steel instead of copper. You could build airframes with aluminum alloys instead of titanium. But you cannot build modern military systems without silver, period. Radar operates by measuring electromagnetic reflections. Silver has the highest electrical conductivity of any metal on Earth. If you substitute copper in a fighter jet's radar, the range decreases by 23%. If you use aluminum, accuracy drops by 31%. If you try to replace it with gold, the cost increases by 2,800%. In electronic warfare, where split-second jamming signals save pilots' lives, silver's zero electrical resistance is the only thing that prevents latency. The Pentagon has painted itself into a corner. They need silver for national defense, but their own demand is driving prices toward levels that make weapons programs financially unsustainable. They cannot substitute it without accepting inferior performance, and they cannot stop buying it without falling behind China. So they authorized Form DD 2139. This allows defense contractors to purchase strategic materials directly from suppliers at government-set prices. But here's the problem. Form DD 2139 contracts require physical delivery, not paper promises. Defense contractors have filed requests for 127.3 million ounces over the next 2 years. Now, look at the available supply. Global above-ground silver stockpiles available for delivery total only 89 million ounces. The Pentagon is demanding 127.3 million ounces from a market that only has 89 million available. That is 123% of the supply. And the deficit is structural. Current global mine production is 870 million ounces. Total demand, including the Pentagon, Tesla, and investors, is 971 million ounces. We are running a 101 million ounce annual deficit. This is why the COMEX is bleeding out. Registered silver inventory has dropped from 350 million ounces in 2020 to just 43 million ounces today. At current depletion rates, the COMEX hits zero by March 2026. When this mathematical impossibility meets the legal requirement for defense contractors to fulfill Pentagon orders, something has to break. And according to a leaked memo from the Defense Logistics Agency, that break is scheduled for exactly 60 days from now. But there is something even more dangerous in the Pentagon's silver strategy that I uncovered in a leaked memo from the Defense Logistics Agency. The memo, dated November 15, 2025, contains a single paragraph that should terrify every bank and every silver investor watching this. It states, strategic materials. Reserve silver lending operations will be discontinued effective December 31st, 2025. All outstanding silver loans must be repaid in physical metal by February the 28th, 2026. No exceptions. No cash settlements. This is the smoking gun. This means the Pentagon has been lending silver to the market to suppress prices while they accumulated strategic reserves. And now they are calling in all those loans simultaneously. Every bank that borrowed Pentagon silver must return physical metal by February 28th. Every ETF that used Pentagon silver as collateral must deliver actual ounces. The memo estimates approximately 340 million ounces of silver are currently on loan. That is 39% of annual global production, demanded for immediate delivery from markets that are already facing a 101 million ounce deficit. When this recall notice hits, physics meets mathematics. Both point to the same conclusion. $200 per ounce isn't a target. It is the minimum mathematical outcome. You have 340 million ounces of recalled loans crashing into a market with only 43 million ounces of registered inventory. February 28th, 2026. That is less than 60 days from now. This isn't a prediction. It is a countdown. When that deadline arrives, the paper silver market breaks under delivery pressure. But here is what makes this different from any other squeeze in history. The buyer is the United States military. The Pentagon has unlimited authorization to pay any price necessary. They are not a profit-maximizing corporation. They are the U.S. military with a constitutional requirement for national defense. At $200, Pentagon procurement doesn't stop. It accelerates. They created this crisis through decades of manipulation, and now they are panicking to secure what's left. This represents the final stage of a 70-year pattern. Government accumulation disguised as market stability, followed by violent revaluation when physical reality overcomes paper promises. Except this time, there is no substitute. There is no escape from the physics. February 28th is when the countdown ends and true price discovery begins. You have to ask yourself one question. What happens to your portfolio when unlimited government spending meets a finite physical supply that simply does not exist? I suggest you get your physical position in place before the Pentagon clears out the rest of the vault.